Hey guys, thanks for joining the webinar today. We will get started in just a few minutes here. As usual, there is a chat bar over on the right-hand side of your screen. So go ahead, jump on in there, chat with us about what's going on in your Twitter world. My colleague Jessica will be on in there answering any of your questions. So be sure to communicate with each other and we will get started here in a few minutes. All right, Edgar community, we are getting ready to get started on our really awesome new feature release here about Twitter variations. Like I said, we are going to go over a couple of just quick tips and tricks on Twitter. We're going to go over a lot about how to add variations to your Edgar account now, but we also want to hear from you. So jump on in the discussion. There's a chat bar over on the right-hand side of your screen that you can start to chat with each other. Let us know what's going on with your world. My colleague Jess will be answering any questions that you have throughout this, and we will go ahead and get started today as it is 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we're so excited that you're here today. So Edgar did just release an awesome new feature that lets you add variations to the posts you have in your library. So resharing your evergreen content really has always been the backbone of Edgar. And if you've been using him for a while, you know that you see a significant increase in traffic from Twitter and from other social networks when you're producing engaging content for your community. And we want to make sure that all this hard work you're putting into your status updates isn't just shared once and lost into the void of the internet. Rather, that you're able to share it multiple times. So it gives all that awesome value to your followers and it makes sure they have a chance to catch that link at a time that they can read it. Maybe they missed it the first time. Maybe they're in a different time zone. And you all know that the backbone of Edgar has always been making sure you can get these updates out to the majority of your followers. So for making sure this happens, we did build in this new variations feature. And this is going to be so important, not only to stay in line with Twitter's new terms of service, but also to create these authentic experiences for your community. So let's jump in briefly here and start with a little bit of background. Twitter did cause a real stir when they announced that as of late March 2018, it's no longer going to allow you to send the same tweet to a Twitter account more than once or the same tweet to multiple Twitter accounts at the same time. Now, this produces a little bit of an issue when you're using an automation software like Edgar in order to streamline your posting schedule. However, this got Edgar's thinking, this doesn't mean we have to stop resharing our evergreen concepts with our community. What if we do have lots of content that you want to share and reshare and make sure your tweets are really getting out there to your community? All we need to do is produce a feature for you guys to make sure these differences in the variations of how you're producing these evergreen content links are sent out to Twitter in a consistent manner still. So before, when Twitter began enforcing that, it really prohibited these duplicate tweets. Edgar was updated so that each post in the library that was sent to Twitter was expired and a little expiration tag was added to the post in your library like you see here on the screen. So you'll know that this content can no longer go to Twitter because it says it's expired. However, we're now going to start thinking of this entire post here as a stack in itself. So it's no longer an individual post. I want you to think of this as a stack that you can add variations to inside of this one stack. So when you have something you want to share more than once, like a blog post or something that is going to be really awesome for your followers to see, this stack now produces the ability to have multiple variations in it. And this is really a great way not to think of these new terms and services as any sort of limitation on your Twitter marketing, but more of a way to optimize your content and develop new ways to entice your customers to click on your links. So this means when you're thinking about using Twitter for your lead generation, you can still make sure that you're using it not only as a conversation channel, but also as a way to drive traffic to your content over time so it doesn't just get lost, as we were chatting about before. So when you click on this Add Variations button that you see in the bottom left-hand corner of the text box here, you'll notice multiple smaller text boxes are populated below it. This is going to allow you to add in those awesome variations that we've been building up to here. And the cool thing about this is you probably actually already do this sort of thing where you're rephrasing how you're sharing content when you're talking in real life. And remember, social media is really about staying social. So you want to be conversational and you want to bring these real life activities into your social media posting. So a simple rephrasing of what you've written before can really do the trick here. So you kind of want to think of it this way. If you're telling two groups of people a different story, you might not exactly phrase it the same way. That's because different people respond to different stories. So if you're recalling a time of something that happened to you to your grandmother, you might use different language than you did to your best friend, but it's still sharing that same evergreen concept. So this is what these additional variation boxes down here will really help you do. And writing unique tweets in these variation boxes doesn't mean it has to take a ton of time and effort. We'll go over some strategies in a minute on how to do this quickly. But getting back to this feature, as you do start to brainstorm ways that you can tell the story of your links differently, you can see that clicking the Add New Variation button also allows you to put the link right in that third and fourth variation that you're adding. I want you guys to make sure that you're doing this just to make sure that it is sent to Twitter and LinkedIn with the preview that way. Again, definitely making sure we're driving more traffic and getting people to engage with your content. So think of this as different ways you can go ahead and introduce this link or idea. As you sit down and you start to add variations to these boxes, spark some creativity on how you can make people laugh or smile when looking at the status update, or make sure that it compels people to start sharing your content out to their network. And it's really about that relationship building to earn the right then to ask them to promote your product or to ask them to buy or subscribe to your email list. So for example, here, you can see we have one blog post that we want to share more than once. We can take a different headline that we brainstormed or a different pull quote from the article, or just ask a different question in front of that link to spark some conversation on the post. And increasing this will just really make sure you have that all-important know, like, and trust factor in your updates with each one that's sending out. So while these variations that you're adding into Edgar are helpful for your Twitter marketing, it's also going to help for your LinkedIn and Facebook. So Edgar is going to cycle through these variations for those networks too. So make sure, again, that when you're adding these in, the conversation you're using, if you're attaching them to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter and the updates in your Edgar library, that you're always adding in that link and knowing that each variation will go out to each network. So going a little bit further on this specific feature here, after you come up with your awesome value-added content, Edgar's going to bundle all of these variations together in a stack, kind of like a stack of cards. So the one post is a stack, and then there are those cards within it. He's going to go from stack to stack when he's choosing what to share next. So each original post you can add can now be thought of as a stack with multiple variations within it. With this mindset, it's pretty simple to see how this works, actually. A stack of variations is treated like a single post when it comes to the queue. So you say you have 5 stacks or 5 posts in your category, each with variations in them. Edgar's going to publish one variation from each stack to your social accounts. He'll then go back to the beginning and publish the second variation the next time that post is up for rotation, and then the third. He's going to rotate through each category just as he does for single posts with no variations. And don't worry, nothing in your stack will be shared back to back unless that's the only piece of content in that category. It's going to work the same way on your schedule. Every time Edgar hits that category on your schedule, Edgar will publish the last variation added to the social networks first, then retire that variation and put the whole stack to the end of the line in your category. Edgar pulls up the variations from a stack in reverse order. So when you're doing this, guys, make sure that you're adding in the updates in a way that you know the last variation you add will be published first, and then Edgar will work backwards up to the first variation that you put in there. So how do you get the most out of the variations that you put into Edgar and still have it save you so much time? The trick is still going to be the same, is that you want to make sure that you're taking time to prepare all of this content ahead of time so that Edgar's schedule can automate these posts for you. And this really helps your brand stay nice and consistent on social media too. And it avoids those moments where maybe you have something that you really, really need to say, but you're just falling short of something to make it clever or engaging, and you're just drawing a big old blank. Having this time dedicated each week or each month to pop in and add more variations to your content is a great way to make sure you're not caught off guard and that you don't just post anything when you're drawing a blank. Remember that people are following you for a reason. They want to hear from you. So make sure you're adding these time slots and really getting this awesome content out to your community. And it really takes the pressure off of yourself too by writing these updates and variations in advance as a way to make sure that they're getting published ahead of time. Having more variations in your content and using Edgar's weekly repeating schedule is really going to help you experiment with posting times on your schedule. As we've mentioned before, everyone's peak posting time is going to be a little bit different based on your audience. So these variations also help you get more content out at different times so you can experiment and see when your community is ready to engage and then alter your Edgar schedule to match those times. And especially when you're doing this with a scheduling tool, make sure that you have yourself set up for success by analyzing and iterating and adding in more variations on a regular basis. So when you're kind of blocking out this time to do this in your workflow, make sure that you also know any content you see with that little expired tag on it in your library can be edited to add in fresh variations, to add in new and exciting updates. It may be time to pop into your library and actually use the filter feature you see over on the left-hand side here. You'll notice that you can go ahead and sort your library by a specific Twitter account or by just Twitter in general under that social network tab. And then we have a new filter that you can go ahead and utilize that says has publishable variations. If you click no on this filter, it'll actually filter your library to show you any posts that have no variations in them. So everything has been expired. And you can pop in and click edit on that post. Go ahead and add in some more, get creative, make sure that you're getting all of that great content into your Edgar library, resave those updates, and you're good to go for a while. As kind of a little pro tip too, I always like to say that you can bring in a lot of creative ways to add variations. Like think about the last time you did an email campaign and you used a different status update or a different excuse me, that you used a different subject line. These subject lines can kind of be triangulated in this way of saying, hey, this subject line did really well. Maybe I can reuse this and put this in as a status update to my Edgar library as another variation for sharing this content. So get creative when you're getting your content out there and use things that's work for you in different mediums to get the most effective tweets out there. So let's take a peek now about a little bit how Edgar has done this before. So you can see here, we're sharing a blog post in our Edgar library that has related to our new Twitter variations. You can see adding this link, we're asking a question. Need to think of some quick variations on your status updates. Try these tips. One reason we love this status update is because people can really see themselves in this story. It's really timely. People are saying, you know what, I do need to think of some new variations and I'm pressed for time. I'm a small business owner. How can I do this quickly? So we're using these things we know about our community from our community's personas, adding them in related to our blog post here and sharing them. And when people are reading this and they're answering, yes, I do need to think of this, they're answering yes to click on that status update, to be directed to your website and really fill that knowledge gap that they don't know. So it's a great way not only to connect with your community, but make sure you're getting that timely status updates out there. So the second time that this blog link is going to come up in the stack rotation, this will be our second update that's sent out. How brands promote the same piece of content in a bunch of different ways. Really conversational, really making sure that we're still providing you with what this link is going to give you when you click on it, but we're also utilizing different language in order to introduce it that piques a little bit of different curiosity. The great thing about this status update too is it has a subtle way of adding social proof to this concept. We're saying other brands do this. This is a proven marketing concept that we think will add value to your community. Again, sparking some curiosity and really making sure people feel compelled to click on that link. Next here, we're sharing the same link here, adding in a different variation within your Edgar content library, but maybe doing it in a more inspirational manner. We're saying, you know what, take some inspiration. Are you bogged down? Are you guys trying to think of different variations to add? We've got the inspiration for you. We're going to help you out here. So again, think of the ways you can connect with your community differently through the language you're using to introduce the same blog post. Last year, one last status update for the same link. So right here, guys, again, we have 4 updates that we can add as variations to our library from the same link. Again, nice and conversational. You're asking a question, so it speaks right to their story. And it makes people kind of think, hey, what's my next step? Here's how to create a whole bunch of different updates go ahead and click on that and you'll get that next step. So an awesome call to action there, making sure we're piquing people's interest and making sure that, again, we're adding this really valuable evergreen link in and sharing it with some variations to stay in line with Twitter's terms of service. So these are some really big concepts. We're trying to get all of our value-added content out to our followers, but we have a really tiny character limit on Twitter to do this. One of the things that I like to also always bring to attention is the way you can do this is to speak to people's emotions. You want to make sure you're acknowledging the pain points people have that your product can solve in order to really get some great connections there. And we want to embrace this to make sure that we're saying, hey, we know you, we know your story, we are right there with you, creating that camaraderie. So sharing a link like this with a little bit of a question, with a little bit of a speak to your story and emotion in it is a great way to entice people to click on that link. Now, when adding this variation into our Edgar library, again here, this is the same link with a different status update. We want to think how we can bring people into our community and saying, you know what, it's okay, we're all dealing with this together is a great way to have a shared experience, to build up your tribe and to build up your legitimacy and to have that compelling content to attract new followers and keep them engaged over time. And again, if we are sharing value-added content here, we're earning the right then to ask people to sign up for our newsletter when they come to our blog, to ask people to subscribe to our service because we think it'll help you and we think it'll really produce some awesome workflows within your social media marketing plan. Another way we want to make sure that you're thinking about this is if you have a blog post that makes more than just one point, you can go ahead and pick and choose different points from within this blog post. So you can see here, we did a blog post on Facebook broadcasting. Some of the things that we did when we were outlining this blog post was say, we're going to introduce some of the video stats that may be a little bit misleading. The majority of our views may come after our broadcast ends was another topic we touched on in this blog post. We wanted to promote past broadcasts and see how those could be really valuable for the community. These are all things we spoke to within this blog post, and these are all things that can be added in as variations to inform your community what this post is going to provide them and really entice people to click on over. So quotes from your blog posts are another great way to get people knowing what they're going to receive. Another awesome way is to get creative with your call to action when you're adding in your variations. So you can see this is a post from Passion Planner that's going ahead and being a little bit more promotional. So maybe not as much value addition in the content they're sharing, but still great value offering you a discount here. If they want to make sure they're sharing this update over and over again, a great way to do this is to think of your call to action, that short and concise way you're getting people to click on that link, and go ahead and pull out the thesaurus to go ahead and change it up. Maybe you don't say shop now. Maybe you go ahead and say that they can click to receive this free download when they shop now or something like that. Get creative with the content you're marketing and the bundles you're producing within that in order to really get people to click on those variations and still make sure you're staying in line with Twitter's terms of service. So again, not everything on social media has to be promotional or has to lead back to driving traffic to your site. Edgar's variation feature is really awesome at getting out other types of updates, like your more softer updates, things that are going to make people laugh, things that are more behind the scenes content to really go ahead and humanize your content on social media and get your brand awareness out there. So providing an article every time isn't necessary. And we'll take a couple of peeks here at some brands who have done this really well. So take here Old Spice. You can see that they have this sort of you couldn't stop laughing because content. This is awesome content because you're able to get this update out, make people laugh. And how funny is it that this quote here is something that produced so many retweets. 686 people shared this retweet out to their community because they thought it was a funny moment that Old Spice shared, a whimsical musing, and that then gets their brand out to the entire followers of the people who retweeted it. That brand awareness is awesome. So don't underestimate the value of not always sharing blog posts, but also sharing this softer content on social media. This is another awesome example I love from Netflix. It goes ahead and creates a tribe with their community saying, hey, you guys have some funny experiences that you've all shared together. And now you're going to go ahead and share this out. Again, look at the amount of likes and retweets this one post got just with the softer content. So make sure when you're going ahead and adding updates to Twitter, you're not always getting bogged down in just sharing links, but you're humanizing your brand, you're sharing your different values you're sharing behind the scenes content to get people to know your brand and to know who else is in your community. People want to know about your tribe. People want to know who else they're interacting with. So go ahead and make them understand that by showing a little bit about what your brand is up to these days. Another great thing that I love to go ahead and make sure you guys are thinking about is how you can get some icebreakers going. No one is going to respond to you or engage with you unless you start to do that first. That can be sharing a personal story if you'd like your followers to start to share more with you, or asking questions. We have a post here that you can see someone even calls out that it's an icebreaker, saying, "Hey guys, I know it's hard to chat on social media, but let's get this conversation started." And to kind of get your mindset in this space, you want to think of this as, would you actually jump right into a product pitch or jump right into describing who and what your brand is to someone at a dinner party? Probably not. You'd go through a couple of icebreakers. You'd have that great common connection first, and then you can start talking about it. Same deal on social media, keeping it conversational, having these icebreakers, and making sure that people are really able to get that common connection and talk back to you is a great way to get a sustaining long-term relationship. Next here, don't forget everything that you're doing on social media, again, has to necessarily lead back to your website. And if you have a few extra characters left over in any tweet, make sure you're utilizing some emojis. It's a great way not only to add in a little bit of fun to your tweets. You don't have to go crazy like Domino's Pizza did here, but it's a great way to get the tone across as well. Emoji marketing is really all the rage in how visual we are on social media too. You can add emojis into your Edgar content. If you have a Windows computer, there's a small keyboard icon that you can click on that will go ahead and produce an emoji keyboard for you to use. Or on social media or on your Mac, you can actually click Command, Control, and Space at the same time. And this emoji keyboard will pop up for you, allowing you to go ahead and add those into your Edgar status updates. So when they're sent out to the social networks, you get a little bit of fun and spice in there. So now that you have a lot of automation set up, let's jump into some other strategies on Twitter that are a little bit more nuanced here. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we're automating our social media in order to engage with our followers. So never forget to log into Twitter, click that notifications tab at the top of your Twitter account, that little bell that you see. And this is where you can check in on the people who have tweeted at your brand, who have retweeted you. Some of the best practices here are to really show your community that you care about them and you care that they're following and engaging with you. So really make sure you're checking this often and utilizing the time Edgar saves you to actually engage with your followers, to make sure they know what's going on with your brand and to make sure they know there's a real person behind that Twitter account. And if you need a little bit of inspiration in order to get yourself to check in on that notifications tab, these are some crazy stats that show you just how valuable it is to respond to your followers and to retweet them. When a follower is going to retweet you, or if they're asking a question and you respond, they are 44% more likely to share their experience both online and offline. Again, giving you that powerful word of mouth marketing that is going to really help increase your brand awareness. So do not forget the value of adding in your retweets, following people who mention you on Twitter, making sure you're replying to those who tweet at you every day is a great way to get your followers to come back and do it more in the future. Another great thing that you can do if you need a little bit more inspiration on how to get different variations is look at the photos that you use. If you change up your media, it might actually spark different ideas on the words you can use in your variations. You can do things like share things with Twitter cards or share static images. And tweets actually do receive way more likes and way more retweets if they have images, just because social media is such a visual network. So which of these that you're sharing here, you can see we're sharing one with a Twitter card and one with a static image, still making sure that we're going ahead and varying the text that we're using within that update. But again, making sure it's sparking a little bit of a different connection with our community here. And when you're adding photos to your Edgar library, don't forget that you can actually attach up to 4 photos to send to one tweet. So it's a great way that if you do have time to pop into Canva and make a lot of different graphics, you can add all of these that people can scroll through and see multiple photos attached to your tweet at once. And you can do that right in your Edgar library with that little camera icon you see in the bottom left-hand corner there. So images can also help you come up with a lot of inspiration, as we were saying before. And you can see here the images attached to these tweets give different perspectives on each one of these article shares. One is going to show a really specific hashtag being used, while the other is showing more of an infographic style. And the last one is showing an Instagram profile. So again, adding different images is a great way to go ahead and spark what you can talk about a little bit differently and get some more creativity out on your Twitter accounts, keeping it really authentic and keeping it really engaged while still sharing your evergreen content. So remember, again, when you're adding in images, if you'd like to share it with just a clickable image in a link, there is something called Twitter cards. If you guys aren't sure how to set that up on your website, email support@meetedgar.com. We're more than happy to go ahead and guide you through the process. But it's a great way to go ahead and share content in the way that you would see a Facebook preview being generated on Facebook. It'll be a link with a photo that people can just click right on that photo and drive more traffic to that link. So going a little bit further, another thing you can do when you need a little bit more inspiration is to use the search in Twitter. From the upper navigation bar, you'll see a little search bar that you can type in different keywords. Twitter really is such a powerful search engine, and utilizing some of the language that you see that's going on in your community, that your followers are talking about, that different industry leaders and thought leaders in your niche are talking about, can really spark some different ways that you can introduce your content, think about how you differ from their opinions to make sure your voice is added to the conversation, helping you solve people's problems that much quicker with your product or with your service. So remember, Twitter is really an awesome search engine. Don't forget to go ahead and type it into that search bar to get more ideas on how and what is being talked about in your industry. So now that Edgar's variation feature is really allowing you to free up a lot more time, other things that you can do on Twitter is to create a poll. Again, it is all about engagement on social media these days. And I wanted to bring this up today to make sure that you guys are aware that this is something you can do and one of the best ways to get that engagement built right into a post. So you can create a poll on Twitter by clicking that same tweet button you do to add a normal tweet in. And you'll notice a little graph down at the bottom that kind of looks like a horizontal bar graph. Clicking this will allow you to go ahead and add in a question, add in something you're wondering, and you can then see that Twitter gives you a space to add in different answers to this question. Conducting this poll centered around your brand not only lets you get a little bit of market research in there, it also allows your audience to see what others in your community are thinking about. Here you can see this is one of Twitter's polls that they conducted, and it's just showing you that if Twitter is using this feature themselves, it's probably a feature you want to pay attention to. So make sure that you're getting in there, conducting polls to drive a little bit more engagement with the time that Edgar's social media automation is saving you there. Another way to use this poll that I love is how Airbnb does it here. You can see they're asking a question along with a hashtag. So hashtags on Twitter are huge. I'm sure you know, to build brand awareness, but also to make sure that people are engaging and able to find that hashtag that's associated with your brand. Adding it into this poll is also giving people a little bit of an idea of saying, you know, hey, there's a long weekend coming up. Awesome. I am going to do something. And I want to go ahead and create a memory and an experience. Look at what everyone else in the community is doing here as well. So utilize these things to make sure you're building your community awareness. And Twitter polls are an awesome way to do that. So as we're going through this, thinking about different ways to go ahead and pop in variations to your Twitter account, make sure that you're not neglecting the all-important analytics aspect. So when you go into your Twitter account, all you have to do is go analytics.twitter.com, and it'll pop up this screen here. And if you click from the upper navigation bar, that tweets button you see, you'll notice that it can populate different types of information on the engagement and the clicks and the reach that that specific tweet received. If you pop over, you'll notice under the graph here, it says tweets, and then the option next to it says top tweets. You can see some of the organic posts that you utilized and how they did, letting you know the language of each variation that you used and which ones were working best. Some of the best things that you can do here in this top tweet section is also looking at that little promote button you see next to the tweet. If you're seeing a post do really well and you want to get it out to more of your audiences, you can actually promote posts on Twitter as well, similar to when you're promoting posts on Facebook. It is going to be a little bit more of a pay-to-play space when you're promoting it. However, if you've done all of this organic posting with Edgar and you've really fleshed out which story speaks to your followers, it's an awesome way to make sure that any post you want to promote is money well spent. So when you do go ahead and click on that promote button, you can see here, you can also add in the details of how much money you want to spend on this promotion and go ahead and even target it to the location if you're finding that you're not reaching your overseas audience or something like that. So again, it's such a powerful tool to pop into your Twitter analytics and make sure that you're really understanding all of the awesome features that are there. With the time you're saving on Edgar posting these variations for you, it's time to start getting a little creative and start getting your Twitter marketing going. Awesome. So thanks for joining the webinar. Like I said, we are here for you at any time. If you email support@meetedgar.com, we're more than happy to answer any questions you have on variations, to offer any advice on the best practices in creating links. Go ahead and tweet us on Twitter @MeetEdgar is our handle. Let us know what you would like to learn from future webinars, how you liked this one, any other questions you have. And if you're not an Edgar user yet and you want to try out our new variations feature, you can either go ahead and email support@meetedgar.com, and we're more than happy to get you set up with a free month. Or if you go ahead and sign up for Edgar, there'll be a coupon code where you can put in the coupon Octopus Webinar 18 for that free month. Thanks a million for joining the webinar today.